Hello, hello, hello. As I said, thanks for joining us. I'm Lili Miller, and you might recognize my voice if you've used our app. I have spent many hours in a cupboard recording Anna's therapy sessions into the app. So yeah, if I sound familiar, that will be why. And yeah, I work at Otto, and I work really closely with Anna Pugh, who is our lead therapist. Now, Anna has a history of working as an audiologist and as a hearing therapist. She has all sorts of hobbies and also runs the Deaf Centre where she lives. She's kind of world renowned in terms of expertise. She's run many courses for other audiologists and therapists and so on how to provide excellent tinnitus care. So yeah, we are in safe hands with Anna. And Otto, for those of you who might have come just from the website perhaps, or seen something and joined us and are unfamiliar with what Otto is. Otto is both a digital program and a one-to-one coaching program to help people with tinnitus. So if you or someone you know has tinnitus, then we are here to help you. All we want to do is make the road to habituation easier. And this is what we're going to be looking at in this webinar. What is habituation and how do you do it? So rather than ramble on, I'm going to be turning to the expert to tell us a little bit more than that. But just to repeat, in case you weren't here right at the beginning, do be using that Q&A chat down the bottom. Love to be able to answer as many questions as possible. Our co-founder, Dr. Ed Farrar, is also here, and he will be answering any questions on the text chat as well. But we'll leave a lot of space towards the back end of this webinar to answer these questions. So throw them in. Anna can see them as she goes, and if they don't get answered by Ed or Anna along the way, we'll answer them after Anna has talked to us about habituation. So, Anna, let me turn to you and ask you, what is tinnitus habituation? Can you tell us a little bit more about it? And yeah, how do we do it?
And how do we do it? Yeah, okay. Whew, huge kind of words. Thank you, Lily. I mean, I'm sure all of you know Lily's voice, and it's probably really lovely to actually see the person who is the voice of Otto, and it's great to be here today with Ed and Lily. Ed is, as Lily said, is one of our co-founders, and George and Ed and I and Lily came together to develop the Otto therapy program and the coaching program, the one-to-one coaching program, as a response to where we saw there a need for a lack of support and help for people with tinnitus. So I'm going to talk a little bit about me just to give you a context, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about habituation, because I think it's important to know why I'm saying some of the stuff that I say, and why we have the sessions on the app, and why we have the coaching one-to-one that we do have. So as Lily said, I'm a hearing therapist audiologist. I've been a hearing therapist audiologist for over 40 years. And I was a hearing therapist audiologist for about 15 to 20 years before I developed tinnitus myself. And as a consequence to that, I found that the traditional support that I've been busily espousing wasn't quite enough. wasn't getting the job done. So I've spent the last 20 years building together an idea of how we can help people and help myself move towards habituation. So when we talk about habituation, it's not a magic thing. It's not something that happens overnight. Habituation is a process and not an event. And it's where we get to the point where we know we have tinnitus. We've accepted that that's just part of our everyday, but it doesn't get in the way of us living our lives and living our lives to the full. There will still be days, moments when it sort of alerts us and gets our attention, and we have an emotional, psychological response to that, but it shouldn't stop us getting on with stuff. And we know that when people are first experiencing tinnitus, it can be overwhelming, and you can think that you'll never get through how to cope with this. And so it's about learning those skills, recognizing your own resilience and coping strategies, and teasing some of our tools that we've learned over the years with thousands of people using these exercises and these ideas. They're all tested, they're all clinically proven. None of them are just sort of out of the air, to really make sure that we help all of us move towards a stage where we've got tinnitus, and we know we've got tinnitus, and it's okay, and we can manage, and it's not something that stops us in our tracks. So how do we get there? We get there by recognizing that when we hear the tinnitus noise, it's not something that's going to harm us. Our emotional response, our physiological response, is to kick into that fear and flight and freeze response. And that's an automatic, almost primal response that happens. And we don't always have immediate control over that. And because of that, our adrenaline goes up, our cortisol level goes up, all of our biochemical changes happen, and we become more sensitive to sound. So because we're more sensitive to sound, we hear our tinnitus louder. And because we hear our tinnitus louder, we become more stressed, we become more panicky. And you know that cycle. You've all done that. I know that we've all gone through those cycles. And so what we work with in also is that we teach ways of easing that automatic response, easing that emotional response, so that when we hear our tinnitus noise, we don't have that same immediate response. We can hear it, we can recognize it, and we've got some tools to calm us down and to bring us back to a grounded, safe space. And that can be really difficult to hear when you're in the middle of experiencing tinnitus. It's really hard to see that there are good days when you're in the middle of a storm, to see that there are edges to it. But even the worst times will pass. And so Otto will give you some tools to help you get there quicker and easier, and make it less work. But there is some practice, and you need to embed those tools so that it becomes almost as natural as brushing your teeth in the morning, and it becomes ordinary. What we don't want is for people to, I must do this for my tinnitus, because what you're doing then is focusing on your tinnitus. What we're doing is we must do this to help ourselves. And it's not airy-fairy. It's not all, oh, it'll be wonderful and it's all happy and everything's positive. We know that when you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. And that's okay as well, because everybody has a bad day. People without tinnitus have bad days. Everybody has a bad day. But when we have tinnitus and we have a bad day, it can be worse for us. It can make us feel less able to cope. So we need to put things in perspective. We need to recognize that we have the tools to move on, and we can help ourselves change. So the coaches with Otto will give you some tools, will give you some tips and some ideas, but it will be very person-centered. Coming back from my own background as a person-centered therapist, and counselor, I always use the person as context. It's about using your experience, because your experience of tinnitus will be different from my experience of tinnitus. My experience of tinnitus will be different from George and Ed's experience of tinnitus. And so we all have to find our own way, but there are a number of things that are common. So what's common is anxiety, stress, sleeplessness, and all of those things, that fear and regret, all of those things are fairly common themes. So we can use the tools to address each of those concepts in each turn, and that will help us towards habituation. So in Otto, we talk about habituation stages, and we start off in stage one when tinnitus is very intrusive and that's all you're thinking about, and it can be overwhelming. Moving to stage four, where tinnitus is there and you know that you have tinnitus, but you're okay and you get on with stuff and you get your life back. Now, not everybody will immediately get from one to four. Some people will just sort of go through stages, and there'll be days when you're having a bad day that you'll think, oh, I've gone back so many stages, but you haven't. What's happened is you've recognized that this is happening to you and you've got the skills to get through it. So it's about learning all of those things. And is that, Lily, do you think that there's something that I've missed there? I mean,
No, that's
I'm
excellent.
talking in very general terms, I know, but
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And no, everything you said is excellent. And what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit more specifically about
yeah,
habituation with some of our questions. And there are other questions not related to habituation that we'll make time for too. I guess the only thing I would add that is an image that Ed sometimes uses, which is
mm,
you
yeah,
know how maybe not all of us, but lots of us might be able to see our nose out of the corner of our eye. Um, but over time, your brain understands it isn't important information, so it just stops drawing your attention to it, and so you don't even notice that you can see your nose. And that's what habituation feels like. You have tinnitus, and if you listen for it, you might hear it, but your brain understands that it's not important information, so it just stops drawing your attention to it. And that's sometimes quite a helpful image, just to kind of think, gosh, I can't even understand what it would be like to not notice my tinnitus. That seems really unlikely, but actually it is really possible.
yeah.
um so
I
there's a
think
couple
that's
of,
such a
you
lovely,
go ahead.
sorry, Lily. I think that's such a lovely image that Ed came up with, and I think it's so true. I often talk about tinnitus becoming part of the noises that our bodies produce. So, you know, if I put my head on your chest, your heart makes a really loud sound, and but we don't hear that, and our bodies make lots of noises that we don't hear, and so tinnitus becomes part of those everyday noises that our bodies become habituated to. Or a ticking clock in a house. I always talk about a ticking clock where the clock's ticking all the time but we don't notice it. um I do love Ed's nose analogy. I think that works so well.
Great, thanks, Anna. And Ed has just enabled chat, so thank you for those who pointed out that it was disabled. Ed has now enabled it. There's a couple of questions that link directly to what you've just said, Anna. So perhaps we could start with them, but keep the questions coming. We love them, and we'll do our best to get through as many as possible. I'm going to start general and get more specific. So Leanne has a great one. Is it
Yeah,
possible to have tinnitus and be happy?
yeah. And Ed wants to talk to that one.
Oh no, I think he's saying you're going to answer it live.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the very simple answer is yes. Um, Being happy is part of our lives, and of course we want to be happy, and I know that sometimes when we first have tinnitus it can make us feel really sad, and it can make us feel lonely and alone, and that we have to cope with this. But yes, I mean, I have tinnitus, and I I'm happy, and lots of people are. I was talking to somebody only today in session, and they've been having a tough time. Their hay fever has really clogged up their system, so they're all bunged up, and because of that, they're hearing their tinnitus more, and they're very down and very low. And by the end of the session, we were laughing and having a jolly time, and their dog was running in and out of the garden in the rain. And we have to, in life, we have to find little scintillans of joy where we can, and recognize them. And it's about recognizing the small things that you do that can make a difference. um and yes, it's more than possible. In fact, it's you know, inevitable that we can
Mm.
still be happy and have tinnitus.
If I can
I
just add to that as well, very quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, no, no.
You have tinnitus, I have tinnitus. I know how you all feel. I
Yeah.
remember how it was when you thought to yourself, I can't ever be, this is going to ruin my entire life. I can't ever be happy again. And then you go to the doctor and the doctor says, sorry, you need to just learn to live with this on your own. That's not true. You will. It is entirely possible to have a happy life, even with severe tinnitus. I can still hear, if I close my ears now, I can still hear my tinnitus. But as Anna explained, it doesn't bother me. If I notice it, it doesn't make me feel like it did at the beginning. And we've all spoken to hundreds of people now that have got their lives back from tinnitus. So yes, it's absolutely possible to live a happy life. Things will get better.
Yeah.
And we've been speaking to people recently about who've gone through the Otto program. And it's been such a joy to get their feedback at the end of it, because you really see that change that habituation brings to somebody. I was speaking to someone recently who said, the thing that's definitely worth saying is what does he say? Let me read it. I used to really not look forward to things. I couldn't enjoy anything. And yet now I can really look forward to things. And I know that tinnitus won't affect me. I can continue my previous lifestyle that I enjoyed. So it is so important to get that hope, isn't it? I think there was a good question that Ed just answered, actually. Someone was saying they've had tinnitus for a really long time. Is it possible to habituate even if you've had tinnitus for a really long time?
Yeah, it really is. And it's when you've learned techniques, and it's also about understanding what's happening with your tinnitus and why you're responding in the ways that you do. And it's about that response. So if you're still responding in the same way to your tinnitus that you did a year ago, 6 years ago, then you're still going to get the same outcome. So it's that old sort of, if you carry on doing what you're doing, you're going to get the same result. So it's about changing that and challenging yourself and learning different ways of thinking. It's about recognizing the reality of 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 what's happening, and that you can have agency, you can change your emotional responses to things, and you can do something about it. If you're stuck in a hole and you just keep digging, you're going to get deeper. But if somebody gives you a ladder, you'll get out the hole.
Thank you. There's a few questions about sleep. There's a few questions about
Mm.
tinnitus that changes form. We'll come to those in a moment. I just wanted to ask Larry's question quickly, which is, if tinnitus doesn't make me sad or anxious, it's just a noise. This seems to be focusing on the emotional side of things. Is habituation just an emotional thing? Or could you kind of explain that
Yeah.
a little bit, or talk into that?
Yeah, okay. So, yes, I probably am talking about emotional. I've just had a whole day of talking to people about their feelings and how they're feeling about their tinnitus. So I do apologize. It's probably where my head is at the moment. But it is about our thought process, the language that we use. We know that words carry weight, psychological weight as well as emotional weight, and that influences our behaviors. So it's about our behaviors are influenced by our thoughts and our feelings, and how our attitudes to the words that we use and the way that we think about things, and the way, particularly the way that we think about tinnitus. So it's about your thought patterns, your mindset, the language that you use, the psychological constructs around why we behave in ways that we do. So all of our therapy support and all of our coaching is based on a blended therapeutic approach, based on the what's called the trans theoretical model, which is where you use many different disciplines. So we use what's called CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy, compassion focused therapies. We're talking about dialectic training, all sorts of psychological therapeutic models to think about our behaviors, our thought patterns, and the language that we use, which influence our feelings and our emotions about tinnitus. So it's a combination of all of those things. And to get all of those things right helps us towards habituation.
Great, thanks, Anna. Could you tell me, there's a few questions here, like my tinnitus changes tone regularly, like hissing, chirping, whistling. Can you help with that? Yeah, take a moment to sort your own hay fever out. I can see both you and Ed. Yeah, so my tinnitus change of tone. There's another one that says, my experience is that tinnitus is worse in the morning, changes through the day. If it changes in frequency and tone occasionally, would habituation still be effective after each change, or does it require a fresh start every time? So yeah, could you speak a little bit about if your tinnitus is changing all the time, can you habituate, and do you have to keep restarting every time you experience a different tone?
Yeah, not everybody has tinnitus that stays the same. Some people have tinnitus that seems to fluctuate, that seems to change in tone, change in direction, all sorts of things. Some people can have tinnitus that's here one day, here half an hour later, and kind of here and moves around, that changes in pitch and intensity and in loudness. Sorry, my voice has gone. Let
No,
me
no,
have a quick drink.
take a
Sorry,
sip, take a
it's
sip.
my hay fever, and I do need to take some antihistamines.
I can
Yeah,
stand in if you like.
can you
Ed,
just stand in? Sorry,
yeah, Dr.
teamwork is
Ed.
important.
So,
Yeah,
well, let's hope I don't get a coughing fit as well. But so I think just to carry on from what Anna is saying is that what's actually important here is not the tone or the sound that you're hearing, because many people will hear and experience different sounds, a wide variety of sounds. What's important is your brain's reaction to what the sound you're hearing. And what we're doing is we're simply changing the way your brain reacts to the sound you hear. So that could be a hissing sound, that could be a whirring or a buzzing sound. It doesn't matter, the approach is still the same, and habituation will be the same regardless of that sound. So it's about changing your brain's reaction. So yes, it's absolutely possible to habituate regardless of the tone you hear. I hope that's I've probably done a not as good a job as Anna would have done answering that, but I hope that's explained things.
I think that the positive thing about that, Ed, is it's much more concise than Anna's version of events.
great. No, we love the chat. So there's a few questions about sleep. I don't know if Ed may have answered a couple of these, but one of them Linda asked earlier on, how do you sleep? I'm really suffering with this. Somebody else, Deborah says, I can tolerate my tinnitus during the day, but as the day progresses to evening, it gets louder and louder, and then it interferes with my sleep, which I think is a really common experience.
Yeah.
And that's David as well. My experience is that tinnitus is worse in the morning, or if it's quiet, it gets louder after I've taken a nap. I think sleep, how does it interact with tinnitus, and how can you get to sleep when you have tinnitus?
Yeah, I mean, sleep is such a major issue for all of us. And in particular, you know, we need restful sleep. We need that ability for our brains and our bodies to rest so that we have the capacity and energy to keep going the following day. When we we go to bed, obviously it's quieter. We tend not to have any distracting sounds. We take our hearing aids out. If we wear hearing aids, all of those things happen. So we hear our tinnitus more. So that can be a whole thing in itself. With Otto, what we have a sleep preparation program. So with guidance from sleep therapists, we've developed a way of working so that you look at routine, what's called sleep hygiene, so sleeping regularly, doing different things in regular ways, getting ready for bed. I mean, when we're children, we have a regular bedtime, so we start to get tired on a regular basis. As grown-ups and adults, we tend not to do that so much, and we go to bed at different times. Having a routine can allow our bodies to develop into that natural circadian rhythm so that we can get into the idea of being ready for bed. We can have a bedtime routine. We can know that we can take some of those thoughts that are going around in our head and ruminating and worrying us. There are techniques that we can use to kind of resolve some of those and help those park some of those overnight. There are also some sound therapy tips that we talk about, using sound in different ways. So just before you come awake, so just at that cusp of coming out of REM sleep and back into consciousness, using sound in those ways, using sound in the morning or in just before you go to bed, using ordinary sounds like fans and fish bowls. I had somebody that uses a small sort of fish tank, and the bubbling noise is quite therapeutic. So it's around using sound where you need to. It's around using good sleep hygiene, getting into routines, having a sleep preparation program, and recognizing that sleep is really important. There's a huge debate over naps and not napping. Some people find if they nap, then they're not as tired. It doesn't help with their tinnitus. Some people find that if they nap and they sleep wrongly, they get cricks, and that exacerbates the tinnitus. There's all sorts of things around that. But we've got some lovely physical breathing exercises, some mindfulness exercises, some lovely sort of stretching and letting some of that tension out before we go to bed. And so sleep is really important, and it features really heavily in a lot of the work that we do, and certainly in the app.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying, isn't it? There's a few questions around what kind of sound and how do I find the perfect sound? And I think what Anna's saying here is choose a sound that you find distracting and relaxing, whether that's an everyday sound or a specific one. The key here is to try and lower those stress levels. Of course, you're going to feel more stressed when it's silent, and you know, all the distractions of the day fade away. And we know that tinnitus and stress really don't help each other out, and you can get caught in really noticing your tinnitus and the stress levels rising, and so noticing it even more. So what we're trying to do is, as you go to sleep, is just lower that stress down so that you can focus on something other than the tinnitus sound, and gradually drift off to sleep. So it is possible to sleep. I've spoken to many people that say, I don't think it's possible to sleep if you've got tinnitus, and we're here to say it is. You just need the right techniques.
Yeah.
There's a few specifics I would love to get a chance to just answer, because if you've come with a specific question, it'd be nice to be able to answer it. So there's someone. Oh, it's Rosalind is asking. She's been using Otto. She's been using distractive sounds. She's been having support, and she feels like she's stuck in stage 3 of habituation. So as Anna described earlier, that's where it's no longer distressing, but it is annoying, and it's kind of in the way, and it's affecting you a little bit. And she wants to get to stage 4, where it's actually you've got your life back. It's not bothering you. You can crack on with whatever you want to do, and you're happy. Have you got any advice for how to move from stage 3 to stage 4?
Yeah, I mean it's quite easy to get stuck in various stages, because we keep sort of we it's a bit like the taking of medicine, and you start feeling better, so you stop taking the medicine. People start feeling better, so they stop doing the exercises, they stop doing the things that made them feel better because they're okay. And what we will always say is you need to practice the techniques that we teach you, and practice and practice and practice until they become embedded and almost like second nature, as I said earlier about brushing your teeth. And as you find that those things become easier to do and that they become more effective, they become part of your daily everyday, and that can really help move through the different stages. Because then when you do have a wobbly day, when you're having difficulty, when you are stressed from life's stress and tensions and let's not be naive that that tinnitus is the only thing that people have to cope with. We have to cope with a myriad of stuff that life throws at us. So we can use some of those techniques to help us cope with the stresses of everyday life as well, and that will help us move through the habituation stage. So I'd say really look at the techniques that you're using. talk to Talk to people around you about ways of supporting yourself and moving through what you think you need.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I think it's also worth saying, so someone was saying, have you just got the app? Is there something else that Otto is offering? And we'll come to that in a little bit, in 5 minutes or so. But yes, we offer a one-to-one coaching program. And Mandy is saying, is it effective if you're stuck in stage 3? And I can say yes. A lot of the people who come into our one-to-one coaching program are people in stage 3 who really want to move over to stage 4 and just need that little bit of extra support. They've got the techniques in the app and they've been really helpful so far, but they've got a little bit stuck. And that's where that one-to-one personal support can really make a difference, because we can understand what's been going on and where we can help unstick you. We'll come back to that in a moment, because I'm keen to leave a bit of time to talk about that coaching program. But can I ask a couple more questions, Anna, just before? We haven't got long, so I'll try and whip through. And I know that Ed is doing really well at,
that's Lily very politely saying, stop rambling, woman.
and Ed is, that's not what I'm saying. Ed is doing a great job over here at typing answers too. So there's a question about, I thought I saw about hyperacusis. Yes, my tinnitus is very loud and I also have hyperacusis. So how can I mask noises like traffic noise? Because I can't avoid that when emergency vehicles go by, for example. So there's one about that and one more about hearing aids. So do hearing aids help with tinnitus? Or and do they always help with tinnitus? Let's have a go at those two.
Okay, I'm gonna start very quickly with hyperacusis. So hyperacusis is a raised sensitivity to loud sounds that most of us find loud, but people with hyperacusis have a raised sensitivity, so we find loud sounds even louder, in fact sometimes intolerable. With tinnitus, because our brains are already listening, and so listening to tinnitus, there's always a raised sensitivity to sounds around us anyway, and that can often be distressing. So it isn't necessarily clinically hyperacusis, but there is a raised sensitivity. Yes, you can't always avoid loud sounds, but you can protect yourself from loud sounds. So there are people who use headphones. There are people that use earplugs, just to dampen down that sort of outside sound a little bit. The problem with headphones and earphones is that if we block our ears, we tend to hear our tinnitus. So it's about getting that balance right. There's also an important element about sound tolerance. People with tinnitus can be so worried about sound and so sensitive to sound that they completely withdraw from environments. I've known people who refuse to use hair dryers and washing machines and hoovers and all of those kind of things, vacuum cleaners, all of those kind of things, because of the noise that they create. And so I would always caution people, and I always work with people about a little bit of exposure and learning to adjust to sound. I'll give a very quick story, if I may. I know I will be very quick, I promise. There's a woman that I'm working with at the moment, and she had spent, before she came to us, she'd been spending 18 months in a dark room. She has tinnitus and vestibular migraines and sensitivity to light. And so she'd been in a dark and quiet room for 18 months, and she couldn't tolerate very much sound at all. We had to speak very quietly and very slowly. And she's now at the point where she was telling me this morning that she's just been to the local pool, in the community pool in the evening. She's got her doors and windows open. and she's getting her life back from being cocooned in a you know, she said she was cocooned, she was wrapped up keeping herself safe. And so and that's because of sound sensitivity. So yes, from, I mean, not everybody's going to be that extreme, obviously, but from that extreme to being out in the world, opening windows and doors is, it's very emotional for me. That was an amazing achievement. Hearing aids and tinnitus very quickly. Hearing aids are often the first point of call for tinnitus, because 80% of people with tinnitus will have a hearing loss. And in fact, NICE, which is the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, which is where the NHS in the UK base all our treatments and therapies on, recommends hearing aids and therapy as the two things that work for helping people with tinnitus. So hearing aids, yes, you have to be very careful about rehabilitation and gradual reintroduction to sound. Your audiologist will work with you and introduce sound very gradually for you and talk to you about how to use sound in general and how to use your hearing aids. But yes, basically, hearing aids and tinnitus, yes.
Thank you very much. It is worth saying it doesn't always, and as Anna said, lots of people with tinnitus don't have any hearing loss. So
Yeah.
don't feel like you're alone in that. It's very much split. Ed is carrying on answering as many questions as he can, as are
Thank you,
we,
Ed.
and it has been so good to hear your questions and have this chance to talk. For us, it's just really lovely to meet the people who we know might have the app and that sort of thing. So thanks for the opportunity. I wanted to just leave a moment to explain kind of what we offer, because there's been a few questions about that, and that makes a lot of sense because we haven't really talked much about it. So let me just pull up this slide, and then sorry, I've managed to load my screen full of your questions. Here we go. So this is what we offer. It's Otto one-to-one coaching. So it's expert coaching. Anna is one of our coaches. We work with two other coaches who are also experts and absolutely fantastic. We offer two sessions a month with your coach. That's where what Anna was describing, we kind of explore those personalized techniques with you, understand your experience and what you've gone through, so that we can really personalize your tinnitus program to you. It generally takes about 6 sessions or 3 months to get you to a place where you've got everything you need to habituate. But you know, that varies, and so we want to make room for that. Maybe you need it happens a bit quicker, maybe it happens a little bit longer. So yes, there's that. There's also tinnitus group support events, a little bit like this, and full access to the Otto app. So Anna's been mentioning the techniques we have in the app. You will have personalized techniques from your coach, and these will appear in the app. So they'll be able to find some specific techniques that will really help you, and they'll pop those in the app for you. We're always here to support you via text. In the app, there's a little help desk. You can just, it's us on the other end, so we can say hi. Yeah, and it's worth saying, kind of this therapy program that we offer is personalized. It's very much designed for your experience. We love to have you here. We love to hear your questions and answer them. So we want to offer you a discount. If you wanted to sign up today, then we're very thrilled to offer you 30% off your first month. You would just need to type the code first month 30, and then that 30% will be automatically taken off. I'm going to put that link into the chat so that you can kind of go direct to it. One moment, just so that you can, or can you do it, Ed?
I've just put it in the chat. So the link's in the chat.
Thanks.
Just to clarify, that with the 30% discount, that makes the first month £175.
Oh, thanks. Yes, good. That's British pounds. So yeah, that I don't have a conversion tool in my head, but if you're wondering what that is in US dollars, feel free to get in touch and we can tell you, or it will automatically do that. When you click that link, it will show it in your currency. It is worth saying that we are absolutely always here to chat. So if you want to kind of talk to us in the app, please do. You can also email us if that's easier. I'm going to put my email into the chat for you. There we go. So if you want to kind of email me directly, you're very welcome to. But as Ed says, we're going to be emailing you all these details a little bit later, so that you can kind of have ease of access. And I think that's kind of everything I wanted to say on that front. I can't see if there are any specific questions about the Otto one-to-one coaching. If there are, please do drop them in now so that we can, if you've got a question about it, many other people will too. How long are your one-to-one in the program? So each session that you have with the specialist, your coach, is 45 minutes long. They'll then give you tools to practice. So you go home with some exercises to practice. You practice them for 2 weeks, and then you come back and you have another session of 45 minutes like this on Zoom with your coach and talk about your progress and make more progress with them. That practice period is really important. So you get to embed the techniques that you're learning. And then I would say, as I said before, it takes about 6 sessions or 3 months to feel like you've got everything you need to habituate. That's on average. For some people, it happens after 4 sessions, so 2 months. For others, they want a little bit more support for a couple of months after that. And we're obviously very happy to offer that. But we're all about getting you habituated. We're not going to keep you here forever. We want you to habituate to your tinnitus so you don't need us anymore. That's what we want. So you've got everything you need. And that's our aim. So hopefully that answers your question, Gemma. I can't see any others about the one-to-one coaching. So yeah, just to say, we'll be running these again. If you enjoyed it, just sign up again. We would love to see you again. And keep your questions coming. Say hello in the chat, and we'll be emailing you with more details. And you can tell the office I'm in are desperate for me to leave, trying to clean up around me, poor people. Anna and Ed, thank you so much for your time. I know that everyone has found this really helpful and useful. So thank you for answering our questions. And yeah, have a lovely evening or morning, wherever in the world you are, everybody. And thank you for coming, and hope to see you again soon at another one of these events.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll send out the link with the sign-up details in an email afterwards. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lili. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.